Okay, it says I'm live, but I'm gonna wait just a second. There we go. Now I can see myself in the comments. Very good. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is our next clarity session. I am reshooting it from yesterday because yesterday I went far too in depth, and if you weren't here in person with us, there was too much. It was too much to digest. So I am back this Sunday morning and I'm going to unpack for you negative thinking, stress, and how to change it. Quite literally in those three, quite literally in that order, in those three. We're going to start with negative thinking, and then I'm going to give you a second look into stress and how to start thinking about that. And then what I promised you, that inverted triangle model to start you down a path to create that change. So if you're watching, do me a favor and drop in a comment for me so I can see that the comments are moving along. Only comments on restricted participant. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go back to our Facebook group and another page to see them, which I will pop in. Hey guys, if you're just joining us, do me a favor and pop in a comment for me so I can see that the comments are flowing through. Facebook takes you to a different page when you do a live. Let me, I'll open the group up just in case. There we go. Okay. Oh, good morning, Nancy. There we go. Okay, so I see him on this page and not over here as expected. Awesome. Okay, cool. So it may take a moment, but I'll just flip screens in order to see your comments, and if I keep going, then I'll pop over to see them. Okay. Good morning, guys. Happy Sunday. This is I wanted to redo for you the negative thinking and stress clarity session. As I mentioned, if you weren't live with us yesterday, I went really far into depth, and I realized that if you're watching it, I would probably lose you, and that is absolutely not the point. I want to give you some succinct, high-level golden nuggets so you can have clarity around them, so you can see how they're impacting yourself. This is what we do in the Self-Examine Life group is, achieve the goals that we think we want through self-examination. And that is because when you have the methodology for change, which is the Nuuaria method, which basically says that let me show you this because we're going to pull from this, right? So can you see this up here? Yes. Still on the screen? Yeah. Yes, good. Okay. So you have, in the pizza and carrot method training, you have an introduction, obviously, to the pizza and carrot method training, and I'm applying it directly to all or nothing, kind of yo-yo thinking, and the all or nothing type of thinking, and choosing relief as the opposite. So you got to make sure you're practicing that. Now, we're going to use this methodology and apply it to and unpack negative thinking and stress. Remember, the Nuuaria method essentially, just kind of put the name out of your brain for a second. And really what I want you to see this as, if you know me, you know that my entire life, I mean, I've been through burnout and building businesses and crashes and failures and burns and successes and weight loss and more crashes and failures and burns, and the whole time, very much how I operate. I'm very introverted. I like to learn from the inside, and I like to understand and unpack and unravel my own habits, not just in behavior, but in my thinking and how I think about the world and what I believe to be real and true about myself and my life, and actually question those things. Because if they're out of alignment, then we're not going to get to where we want to go. And something really fascinating happens. And I kind of joked with you and said, it's the self-examination process is to help you learn about yourself and to achieve the goals that you think you want. Because once you start going down the path of self-examination to achieve the goals that you want, sometimes you start to realize that, wait a minute, that wasn't the goal I wanted. I was given that thing that I was wanted, or I adopted it. I thought that I wanted it. So if that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry. Just go down the process of self-examining yourself, and you'll learn about yourself and the things that you that aren't in alignment with yourself and your values. And where we find this friction in our life. This is because there's a misalignment. Go watch the very, very first clarity session. It's in your Facebook group under guides, under clarity session. It's the very first one about how to create change fast and where we get stuck. And I talk about alignment and this pattern. Okay. So now you have the high level overview of what we're going to use, because we're going to use this to understand negative thinking and stress. And the first thing we're going to do is go into negative thinking, okay? So I'm going to get right to the point on negative thinking, right to the point of what is it and where is it coming from? Because when you realize or understand what it is and where it's coming from, you can better understand and see your own negative thinking and start the process of questioning, of self-examining. So the brain inside of our head, we all have a brain inside of our head, right? Here's you and here's me and here's our brain. We have a brain inside of our head, but we're not that brain. We have a brain, but we're not that brain. The brain inside of our head is wired for safety, survival, and reproduction. Safety, survival, and reproduction. Now, I always give the example, a couple examples, right? 5 million years ago, man could have only made 2 mistakes. He could think that there was a tiger in the bushes when there was no tiger in the bushes. And he stays alive, you know, he gets a little anxious and sweaty and stressed out, and he goes into the stress response. But when he finds out that it's not a bear, then he's okay and he's alive. Or he could not think, or a tiger, he could not think that there was a tiger in the bushes, and, you know, just sit back on a rock and chill for the day when there actually is a tiger in the bushes, and then he dies, right? The brain is not going to let that happen, because we are wired for safety, survival, and procreation, reproduction. So take a garden hose, right? If out of the corner of your eye, you are in your backyard or somebody else's backyard, like a foreign backyard, right? And there's a garden hose just like laying on the ground over there, and you don't know it's a garden hose, and out of the corner of your eye, your brain immediately thinks it's a snake, right? We are wired to stay safe, alive, and reproduce. Safe and alive is stress and anxiety, and reproduction is pleasure. We're going to come back to these when we talk about stress in our second mini little segment here, to understand the basics of emotion versus feeling. So, okay, now you know that the brain is wired for safety, survival, and reproduction. Now, you could say that the negative thinking, if I want to make sure, the brain, not me, the brain wants to make sure that you see that garden hose as a snake, so you would run, you'd get anxious and you'd run, but you would be alive, right? Just in case you were wrong, you'd be alive, right? Here's where negative thinking comes from. Now, you could say that we have negativity bias, right? You've probably heard this before. If you've gone down this path at all, you know that we are hardwired for negativity bias in the way that our brain wants to keep us safe and alive, period. So we're wired for negativity bias. We're wired to see the tiger in the bushes when there isn't one. We're wired to make sure that, we're wired to see the garden or the snake in the garden when there is none and mistake it as such. So although we're stressed and anxious, we're still safe and alive. So you could say that that's negative thinking, like, oh, there was no snake in the garden, right? Why do you always have to see the worst in things? That's because your brain wants to keep you safe and alive. Now let's look at negative thinking present day. Where is it coming from? I told you I'm going to get straight to the point on this. I'm going to write it down for you. Evolved negativity bias. You could say keeping beliefs alive because they are tied to your safety. I'm the worst speller in the world, so forgive me. Evolved negativity bias. You're not running from bears, right? You're not running from bears on an everyday basis. But what you are running from is fake bears. The fake bears could be translated into negative thinking, which produce fake bear stress, which I'll go into. Evolved negativity bias is keeping beliefs alive because they are tied to your safety and survival. Okay, let's unpack this. And I want you to put in the comments here what beliefs you believe you are holding to be true and keeping alive that are tied to your safety and survival. You may not be aware of this. This may be the first time that you are hearing this and looking at this in a very, very direct manner. Here's your beliefs, right? Your beliefs back here. I'm going to give you a couple of examples so you have a very kind of grounded approach to this, because it literally gets to the heart of the matter. Like the most depthful thing we're talking about back here is beliefs. And in that first clarity session I mentioned to you, how do you create change fast? You change the very foundation that's driving everything in your life. So, in my early years in doing this work, I used to work in this area right here. But honestly, we all want to get to the root cause of things and make those changes. And that's why you're here. You wouldn't be here because you're getting real about your behaviors and real about the process of who you're serving and why you're doing what you're doing. So let me give you an example with food. In my early years in food, absolutely, I was in your shoes. This all or nothing kind of pattern. Now, in my early years, I was massively into emotional eating and food addiction. This is probably like my late teen years. Which is why we have Lori for Freedom by Nuuaria, an entire 6-month freedom program, 3 additional months of support. Like that's her area of expertise. I needed a Lori at that point in my life, and I did not have that. And it was one of the hardest places to get through in my life. And that's where some of you are at, which is why we have the freedom program. So the next part of my life, after it was like counselor after counselor. It was a crazy time. This next piece of my life was this all or nothing behavior. And I would get this momentum going and lose some weight, and then I would drop it off because, I'm all or nothing. And in this all or nothing, we talked about morality, the sense of right and wrong, good and bad. And I always had in my head that, well, okay, to lose weight, I need to have a green smoothie in the morning and a chicken salad at lunch. Like this was the box. This was the box. If I didn't eat in this box, if I wasn't perfect like this box right here, if I was outside of this box, well then screw it, because I'm not going to lose weight for today because I didn't follow my green smoothie and my chicken salad, right? So this all or nothing behavior showed up in this way. Now, I'm going to take you back a little bit further. This isn't therapy. I just want you to do this process for yourself. This is the only reason I'm sharing so much of my life with you, is I want you to do this process for yourself. My parents got divorced when I was young. I think that I was like 7 maybe. And so most of my life, my parents have been divorced. And I'm the oldest of 2. I have a younger sister who also kind of lives in the East Valley in Gilbert, Arizona. And she's beautiful. She's got 2 kids, and she's an auntie. Auntie is the best position there ever was. And so growing up, my mom was working several jobs. And it wasn't conscious, but it was just what I did. I took control of things. I went to work early as I possibly could. And control was my safety. Did you get that? Control was my safety, because I was on my own at a very young age, and I didn't know consciously what I was doing, so I just picked my things up in life, and I made shit happen. Made money, got a paycheck, went to work early, tried to help out my mom and keep the house in order as much as I could. It was just a role that I naturally took on. So control was safe, because when things were in my control, I was safe and alive. When things were in my control, I was safe and alive. I'm not talking about a control freak. I'm talking about a scenario that was planted very young, and now this sense of control played out in so many areas of my life. And this control came around my food. This control came around my food to say, okay, green smoothie, chicken salad, here's the control, this is what leads to weight loss. And it could look like this, let me write this in. Control, oh, my camera's trying to reposition itself. Control, and control equals safe and alive. That was my belief. Not conscious of this. I'm not walking around every day thinking about that. When it came to my food, this all or nothing played out in my food because of this. Because here's the box and I eat in the box, and if it's not, then it's out of control and it's unsafe. And that place where it's out of control and unsafe, oh, let me tell you, not a good place to be, right? So this led to my need to control because it felt safe, led to my all or nothing thinking, which of course you can fill in the rest of this, led to stress, overwhelm, frustration, imbalanced behaviors in my food, and extra fat on my body. So second example I can give you is in business. I have been coaching for 14 years. I've been in business. Nuuaria has been around since 2012. And this control has popped up in the sense that, for a lot of my life, I bought the lie that most people tell you in terms of like, it's not a lie for everyone, but the mission and the vision and the goals and all of these things. And it was this box of framework and constructs that shut out creativity and connection to myself. To what I'm doing for you right here and now and sharing with you is my most creative self and how I learn and process my life. It's like my artwork. And now if it can help other people, well, man, that's the best case scenario, right? But all of that I shut out to build a business within this confines and constructs, and I was banging my head against a wall because control was safe and it kept me alive. How you do one thing is how you do everything. When you start to determine what is back here, then all of this starts to unravel for you and you can start to change other parts of your life, which is why I changed the name of this group. So let's bring it back to negative thinking, right? Let's bring it back to negative thinking. Negative thinking, evolved negative bias, comes from keeping beliefs alive because they are tied to your safety and survival. Here's the question. Already done. What are you believing to be true about yourself and your world? What are you believing to be true about yourself and your world? What are you believing to be true about yourself and your world? And the best way to ask this question is looking at these things. I'm going to go 1,000 different directions. What must I be believing to be true about myself and my world if I am this all or nothing kind of yo-yo dieter? What must I be believing to be true about myself and my world if stress is a habit in my life, or anxiety is a habit in my life, or everything feels like it's coming crashing down in my life? What must I be believing to be true about myself and my world if I'm always thinking negatively about the world that I see? This is a phenomenal question to ask. Negative thinking is right here, and this is where it comes from. Remember thought habits, we talked about this, we've talked about it before. Habits of thought are things like all or nothing thinking, catastrophic thinking, obsessive thinking, overthinking, trying to control things you can't control. Remember, not control freak wise, although some of you may be. Telling stories that aren't true. Telling stories that aren't true. This is the stupidest example, and I'm going to tell you anyway. It's like you go to the grocery store and you put on a pair of pants, and you're kind of questioning the pants, but you put them on anyway. And you go to the checkout line, and the guy in front of you gives you this weird looking face, and you go inside of your head and you start making up a story in your mind. You're like, oh my God, my butt looks bad. I shouldn't have worn these pants. When really the guy just had gas. And now you're making up this massive story about your own insecurities and fears, blah, 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 right? This negative thinking, catastrophic thinking. It's not if the sky's going to fall, it's when the sky is going to fall. Things are going far too good. Something's got to go wrong. My life isn't this good. This negative thinking only is in place in your life because it's keeping a belief alive that is tied to your safety and survival. A thought only has power on you. Your negative thinking only has power on you when it is backed by a belief. But a thought without power, a negative thought without belief, without something you're believing in, has no power over you. Got it? Let me look at the comments before we move on to stress. Does that make sense? Nancy. I don't know what you're referring to in soul searches, but I get it. I get it. We are certainly all here similar in the same way. Okay, give me a heads up in the comments if you are rewatching this. Certainly, I want you to just start brain dumping some of your awareness around this and what is coming up for you right now. I also want to make sure that this is you are connecting with this and you're understanding this. This is more in depth than I have gone with you before, and I want you to see directly where this negative thinking is coming from. Before we move on to stress, this is the last thing I'll make mention to you is this. Remember, I said here's you and me, and here's our brain. We're not our brain. We have a brain inside of our head. You're not your brain. You have to put on whatever you want to in terms of, well, if you're not your brain and you're not your body and you're not emotions, what are you, right? Let's call you awareness. You're awareness, okay? Let's just call you awareness. So awareness, something you're observing your negative thinking. You're not your negative thinking. If you get this, this will change your world. And it's only a matter of time since you're here before you actually get this. And when I mean get this, that means integrate this and like actually take this in, right? You're not your brain, you're not your thoughts, you're not your negative thinking. You are awareness, your consciousness, fill in the blank, right? So you're looking at this. If you become this negative thinking and get lost in it, you will be in this cycle, and you'll be living quite literally from the foundation that whatever you believe to be true about yourself and your world, it's not aligned. It's not aligned. It's aligned with safety, survival, and fear. And so it's keeping you stuck in negative thinking and stress. And you're just going around this loop like a hamster wheel. You can't get off the hamster wheel until you see the hamster wheel. But you're just going to keep going around and around and around and around. So this quite literally is negative thinking and where it comes from. It comes from back here. And how we start to change it, I'll show you in the very last piece. Okay, let me erase this. Okay, so let's look at stress, right? So that's what I promised you today. It was negative thinking, stress, and how to change it. I'm going to give you that inverted triangle model I promised you. Stress. I had some notes here, and they're far too in depth, so I'll just give you more of a high level overview. All right, let me take a drink of water real quick. Okay, let's continue with the example of running from tigers and bears and snakes, right? Because that's real danger. You're wired, which I hope you would be. You'll never lose that, right? If you're running from real danger, you're always going to, the fight or flight or flee inside of you, the stress response inside of you will turn on, so you can run to save your life or whatever you will do, right? You're never going to lose that. The problem comes in when you are running from fake bears and tigers and snakes all day, every day, which the majority of people in our world are. This means, which I will unpack for you right now, that you are sympathetic dominant, that you are staying in the stress response response in a low-grade state, which obviously promotes inflammation, cortisol. It's going to slow down your weight loss, slow down your digestion, and increase your blood pressure and 1,000 other things. So let me give you, okay, here's an eye and an ear. Okay, that's an eye and that's an ear. So you're in the world, and you are taking in information in your world, and right, you see the garden hose. So you're going to, out of the corner of your eye, your senses are going to take in this information. And this happens so quick, you're not aware of this. Your senses take in the information, and there's parts of your brain that will determine, like, ooh, wait, is this danger? Is this danger, right? And remember, we're wired for safety and survival. So even if it thinks it's danger, it's still going to alert your body to danger just so you stay safe, right? So if it's danger, you're unaware of this process of is it danger, question mark, because this is happening. There's so many bits of information coming in to your brain on any one given moment in time. So you're not aware of this. This happens very quickly. If the body perceives it as danger, or if the mind, perceives it as danger, then the stress response is turned on. And the squiggly line downward mean when the stress response is turned on, then immediately then you go into the acute stress response. Okay, so acute stress response, I know you all have been there. It's like, this is the best example I can give you because I hate it. I hate traffic. I'm not a fan of driving. And it's especially if you live in Arizona and you know what the 17 is, it's the worst ever. And I was thinking the other day, somebody should really create a meme about, like, if humans were cars, like what they would do. Like, nobody would act the way that they act on the road if they were actually humans with each other. Or maybe they would, I don't know. But so you're driving in a car, and someone in front of you slams on the brakes and stops, like traffic is just going, and they slam on the brakes, and you have to slam on the brakes too, so you don't slam into the back of them, right? My heart starts pounding out of my chest, right? That's danger. It could be a car accident. You could die. So the information that's coming in, it sounds dramatic, but your brain is saying, is this danger? It says yes, right? Automatically. I'm not thinking about that. My heart starts beating out of my chest, and I can feel my blood pressure rising, right? The acute stress response is just that. Your heart starts beating faster, your eyes dilate, your liver releases glucose into the bloodstream, so you can run faster from the bear, so your blood sugar goes up, your digestion shuts down, because, well, if you're running from a bear to save your life, you can't stop to go to the bathroom, so that's going to shut down. You're not going to be hungry. Did you catch that for some of you in constant stress? You're not going to be hungry because you're running from a bear. And that's very common here. If you're like stressed out all day long, and you get chronic stress all day long, you're just not hungry. You come home, you relax, and then you eat the whole kitchen. Sometimes that's stress. So this is the stress response in the body. Now, this is there's two parts of the nervous system. I'll go a little sciencey on you for a second. There's the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is your fight, flight, or flee. Your parasympathetic nervous system is rest, digest, right? That's where we're meant to live. Like, we're meant to run from tigers and bears and snakes, and then relax and be okay. The problem is that we don't know the difference between real bears and fake bears. We don't know the difference between a box full of emails with a fear that you're going to lose your job, because losing my job means that it's safety and survival, that I'm not going to have a paycheck, and if I don't have a paycheck, then, well, I can't pay my bills, and I can't pay my rent, and then I'm going to live under a cardboard box underneath a bridge, right? It's extreme, but this is what your brain does. And so then you see your emails, and you don't really think twice about it. You just automatically see the email from your boss, and your stress response turns on. This happens thousands and thousands of times in a day, when that stress response is turned on, however slight, because of your evolved negative bias that we just talked about, then you move into chronic stress. You can't stay pedal to the metal. The body can't do that. The body can't stay like floor, like you know, in a car, you put the pedal all the way down on go, and it just shoots off, right? You can't stay floored your whole life. So the body has to keep the stress response engaged, but it's got to let off the gas pedal. This is when you go into chronic stress. And in chronic stress, that's where we engage cortisol. That's where we engage the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gland axis, called the HPA axis, which starts to mess with your hormones and your thyroid. I think you're starting to get the point of what I'm trying to communicate with you, is that chronic stress is by far, in my entire career, by far, hands down, probably the biggest problem that there is, because we don't know how to get ourselves out of sympathetic dominance, out of a chronic state of stress. And stress has become such a habit for us that we don't actually know we're stressed out, because it's become such a habit, because it's become our natural state of existence, right? That's not a good place to be. So how do we get out of it? No, I want to make mention of one quick more thing before I show you the last segment of the inverted triangle, okay? One quick additional thing. This stress response, so, because this will serve you in other areas. So, stress. Remember I mentioned to you, oh, you can barely sit. Remember I mentioned to you, the brain is wired for safety, survival, and procreation. So safety and survival, stress hormone, stress response, right? Procreation, pleasure. So now we have cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, those kind of hormones. And over here in pleasure, we've got your oxytocin, your serotonin, your dopamine, etc. So these two states, an emotional state in your body, you could say that's like a chemical soup. So emotions are just chemical soups, right? How you perceive that emotion is your feeling. How you perceive that emotion is your feeling. A lot of people are not as privy to, not as aware when it comes to their feelings, right? They're likely aware of what's happening in their body, like it's maybe an unpleasant kind of emotion, like stress, right? If your heart starts fluttering, and in your past experience, you've had bouts of anxiety or panic attacks. The moment that your heart starts fluttering, your brain makes a microscopic prediction, making mini predictions all of the time, and says, what is this most like? What is this most like? It's like, oh, you had that anxiety panic attack back there. This is probably anxiety again. And so that relays the information back to the body, and then you go into anxiety and a panic attack. This means that the brain, which I've told you before, is just a map of the past. It's just a map of the past. For you to have been here in this group, this is the deepest I'll go because this is probably another topic. For you to be here in this group, to even sign up for the pizza and carrot method training, to even get here, you had to overcome your past experiences of your brain that reminded you of doubt and fear and worry and failure once again. There's a lot of people who, I don't say a lot of people, but there's some people who have definitely rejected in the form of not moving that step forward. And that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Just knowing that you have actually already overcome your past just by being here, which is just the brain. Now, back to emotion and feeling. So if I'm going skydiving, no thank you, never want to do that. If I'm going skydiving, here is in the body, this is the body. The body has the chemical soups of stress and pleasure, right? They're different chemical hormones in the body. Well, if you and me are going skydiving, maybe you're super excited to go skydiving, and I'm like, you're absolutely nuts, and we're way up in the plane together, right? And we both have the stress response happening in the body. Because the brain is like, well, you're gonna die, right? So now we're both in the stress response. And I am experiencing absolute terror and dread, and you're experiencing excitement. Did you get that? We both have this stress response going on. But you're feeling excitement and I'm feeling dread. But we both have the same chemical soup happening in the body. That's the difference between feelings and emotions. Which means that when you have the stress response happening in the body, if you get the, whatever you tend to do, anxiety, frustration, overwhelm, worry, whatever less than desirable emotion you're experiencing, you can transform it instantly by remembering that, first of all, this is a chemical soup that's happening. And in a very quick instance, your brain goes back into the past and says, what is this most like? What is this heart flutter most like? What is this tingling in my fingers most like? Oh yeah, that's like that panic attack that you had a year ago. You're probably having one again. And then you have a panic attack. They say that 95% of everything we think, do, and feel is exactly the same as it was yesterday. 95% of everything you think, do, and feel today is the same as it was yesterday, unless you are aware and changing it. Which means that within stress and negative thinking, the most powerful tool that you will ever use is just being more aware in your life, being more aware in that moment of what is going on in my body during stress. When you're experiencing stress, feeling is the way through. Feeling is the way through. I'm going to give you an easier way to look at this in a second, but for those of you who are really, really interested, then this is great information. Feeling is the way through. When you're experiencing the less than desirable emotions, probably coming from negative thinking, when you're experiencing those less than desirable emotions, worry, frustration, overwhelm, hopelessness, depression, despair, anxiety, that's your entry point. That is your entry point. Because the feeling that you're experiencing is going to take you back to the stress. The stress is happening in your body. And if you follow the stress, it's going to take you back up to your mind. It's a really, really great way to start self-examining things. Okay. Hi, Eileen. Good morning, Sue. I'm popping back into the comments. Eileen, rewatching really because awareness of chronic stress when I'm working full-time and being a caregiver when my mom was alive. I was in a stress response existence for almost 7 years since she passed away recently, grieving and restless on a roller coaster. Yeah, stress response for 7 years is very real and possible. And Eileen, I told you that before. It's your job is to know when to be in the puddle and when to get up. Dry off your clothes and change your clothes and put on a new pair. Only you will ever know that. And both places are really important. Both places serve. Okay, last but not least, I am going to go into this inverted triangle model so you guys have it because it's the basis and premise of how to start thinking about all of this. I just gave you what we learned right now is more of the brain science and introduction to where negative thinking comes from. Next, we learned where stress comes from, knowing the difference between real bears and fake bears, right? Negative thinking, as long as you are safe and alive, you have a place to stay, you have food in the fridge, you're safe, then the majority of our stress is coming from fake bears. So now you know the difference and actually what happens in the body and how it impacts your goals, the outcomes you wish to achieve in your life, by not reducing the stress. So how do we do that? See that? Yep. Okay, there we go. Let me take a sip of water real quick. So how do we put all this together, right? How do we learn to change our thinking? Now, this is a lot. It's still a lot, even, I mean, it's less than what I had given yesterday. So comparatively, living a self-examined life, you work on this on a regular basis and you ask the questions and you slow down. This is the first place to start. I will say that we have I created a stress and meditation curriculum. It's actually accredited by the American Institute of Stress. It's been around for many years. The American Institute of Stress actually sells it on their website as well. And it's the same program that we've implemented in several school districts here in Arizona that I've taught to teachers for the past several years. So I actually, for you guys, I dropped the investment price to $97. It's typically, I think it sells on the American Institute of Stress website for $600. So it's there. I don't know how long I'll keep that because I want to do a few other things to it. So if this is important and impactful for you and you want to stress in particular and you want to learn how to slow things down with meditation, which I'll show you where that fits in here, that's going to be important. There's a second curriculum that followed that up that we applied to a school district last year, and that was anxiety from catastrophic thinking. It's a really, really amazing course, and it goes really in depth with this inverted triangle model, and it applies it to anxiety that comes from specifically catastrophic thinking, as in, not if the sky is going to fall, but when the sky is going to fall. So I actually updated last night. If you go to Nuuaria.com, make sure you spell it right, Nuuaria.com. If you go to the How It Works page, I just updated it last night, and there's everything on there. Group with me, the stress program, the anxiety program, the stepping stone program, the freedom program, it's all up there. So that's going to be the place that you can go to achieve that next step or move into that next area for self-examination. Okay. So here's what I mean by this. We have, I didn't mention this to you, but the brain inside of your head, which you are not, has 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts in any one given day. That's a lot of thoughts. And these thoughts, they form patterns, and they become your habit. When you think a thought over and over and over again, because you're believing it to be true, then it becomes a habit. Now, not all habits are bad, right? They're either serving or they're not towards where you want to go. If you've ever seen a picture of the brain, you've seen grooves in the brain, right? Those grooves in the brain, quite literally, when you think a thought and you back it up with some strong emotion, it's going to wire it in the brain. That's essentially how trauma gets wired in very quickly, is when you go through a traumatic experience, it's a strong emotion. A less than desirable strong emotion, but a strong emotion nonetheless. So when we want to change how we think, backing up with positive, strong emotion is very powerful. But those thoughts, 50,000, 70,000 thoughts, they fall under those categories I talked about. All or nothing thinking, catastrophic thinking, obsessive thinking, overthinking, trying to control things we can't control, telling stories that aren't true, mainly less than desirable in some way. And when we are thinking thoughts, it's like those thoughts, if they're habits, it's like a high-speed train. High-speed train. It's there. The neurons are firing very, very quickly, very, very quickly. And so you think a thought, and it goes down this high-speed freeway, like this, and just goes off. And those thoughts continue to create that stress for you, right? So we have high momentum of thought, right? High momentum of thought. How do you know it's the wrong direction? How do you know high momentum of thought is the wrong direction? Anybody? How do I know that the high momentum of thought is the wrong direction? It's probably my comments aren't catching up. What do thoughts create? Emotions and feelings. Feelings. Another reason it is incredibly important to pay more attention to the granularity of how you're feeling. Wrong direction is because how I'm feeling. Now, if you notice the terminology we use, I've used it for years. There's less than desirable emotion and desirable emotion, because that moves out of the confines of good and bad. That emotion is bad, that emotion is good, right? Right now, with what Eileen's going through, Eileen, the grieving emotion is good. It's going to move you forward. So there's no right or wrong, it's just less than desirable. But we know that we're headed in the wrong direction with our thoughts because it's less than desirable emotion. Stress, overwhelm, anxiety, frustration, hopelessness, depression, despair, etc. High momentum, wrong direction. We don't want to be here. This right here, that's the stress response, right? Okay, so the first thing, if I may explain, then high momentum over here, right direction, what is that? That's desirable emotion, excitement, joy, bliss, connectedness, creativity, right? That's where we all want to be. I think you get the point. You can't do this, right? This is, if you're all or nothing, we think that we can go from depressed out of our mind to bliss out of our mind. Nobody's ever made that jump. We can't do that. But what we must do first is do this. And then we can do this. So what is this down here? You see it? Can you read my chicken scratch? Peace, contentment, and calm. Peace, contentment, and calm. This is it. This is what I'll give you. Number one, we have to be aware. Do I have high momentum of thought in the wrong direction? Known to me through my less than desirable emotion. First step, I have to be aware of that. Second step, I slow it down. Slow it down. How do I know I'm slowing it down? Through practices in mindfulness, meditation, self-directed neuroplasticity, which we teach you in the courses. Just, how do I slow it down? Just slowing it down. I know I'm slowing it down, and I know I've slowed it down when I experience more peace, contentment, and calm. That's your guide. That's your guidance. That's your guidance. When you're when I was teaching the teachers in the school district, right? So you have a goal. If you're in a stress reduction program, you have a goal of another emotional goal. It's like you're here if you want weight loss, right? You have the goal of weight loss. So that's a physical goal. Here we're talking about emotional goals. And so you measure emotional goals with emotions and feelings. So if I'm wrong direction and I have a lot of stress or anxiety, stress over here, well, before I can get to where I want to go, what do I want? More creativity, more connectedness, more joy, more happiness. Before I can get there, I have to get to peace, contentment, and calm. I have to slow that momentum down. And eventually, then I can start changing how I think. I can start changing my beliefs. I can start changing what I believe to be true about myself and my world, and create new neural pathways in the brain that support high momentum of thought in the right direction towards connectedness and peace, and joy and happiness, right? And then I'll oscillate here and here, here and here. When you start this work, you oscillate here and here. Stress, peace, stress, peace, stress, peace. And then eventually you start oscillating over here. Peace, joy, peace, joy, peace, joy, right? You can kind of feel like this is this is just my words and my experience, but this is like neurotic and high, like you're just kind of buzzing and stressed out. Down here, it's just smooth, right? It's just calm. And then up here, right, you're excited. There's a different, pardon my word, energy about excitement, right? And that's not, most of us think you can't stay in excitement all the time. Like that's not realistic either. But you oscillate down here. And there'll be the random occasion where, life goes the way it does and you find yourself back here again. But then not only do you have the new neural pathways, but you have practiced what it takes to get down here as well. So for a lot of you, when it comes to, this is it, and then I'll go into some questions. I share this with you because for a lot of you, and being a dietitian for 12 years, stress has a lot to do with your weight loss. Stress has a lot to do with your body. It's a chemical soup, and it's contributing to your health in a really, really big way. If it doesn't contribute to weight, it'll put inflammation on in the body. It'll affect your digestion. It'll affect your blood pressure. But now you have an understanding of, what is negative thinking, maybe where mine is coming from, and what is stress, how it's affecting my body. And here's your roadmap to start changing it. Okay, that was our negative thinking and stress clarity session. That was a lot, but a lot less than yesterday. So I'll take any questions. If you guys have questions, let me refresh the page here. Cool. So that is, as I mentioned, that's the last thing that you have I created I'll do a separate video for you on, you have this journey map that I had gave to you and uploaded, and it was just to help you see where to go to accomplish what you will want to accomplish. And there's a ton of small little bubbles when you start the process of self-examination, and this is one of them. So there's a lot of pieces and parts, and you'll know which ones resonate with you. This is not meant to be overwhelming. This is meant to provide clarity, and clarity brings you to a state of peace and contentment and calm on your path, and hopefully gives you clues and insights into yourself, into the places that you can create more change in your life around. Because how you do one thing is how you do everything, and when you change one thing, it's going to impact everything, and you're going to have a much, much better life because of it. You know, I'm always here for you. Thank you so much for being here today. And I'll do a separate video on the journey map, because I'll go a little bit more into my story, give you some examples too, but always here for you in the group. Take a look at the journey map and take a look at your next step. I am going to be starting group with me at the end of the month. I'll determine what days and times when people start signing up for it. So group with me, the only thing that I request of you is that you are taking action in something, that you're in the stress and meditation program, you're in the freedom program, you are in your stepping stone program. You got to be taking action on something, because it's in the action that you have the experiential learning. That's where the experience comes in. You got to fall down and get bruised up a little bit. I know you've fallen down and gotten bruised up a lot in life, and so we gotta start taking action again, which is why that stepping stone program is called How to Start Again Without Failing Again. I need you taking action again, so you start learning those things. And that's when we'll get into group, and we'll do more deeper self-examination together in group. And trust me, we'll learn a lot about each other, because if you resonated with any part of my story, we're all a lot alike. All right, guys, have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. Thanks for being here, and have a great day.